All right, so one of the features about being or one of the properties of a centroid, again, is it actually is the center of gravity of a triangular region. And the center of gravity is the point at which the region is stable under the influence of gravity. And as part of that, we're asked to find the centroid on a coordinate plane. Now I'm going to jump over to GeoGebra and graph this. And I'm going to show you a neat little trick about midpoints. But in order to find the centroid, of course, that's the intersection of where the three medians intersect. And one of the things I've got to know, in addition to maybe what the coordinates are of the vertices, I've got to find what the midpoint is of the segment, of the line segments. So let's just kind of start here before I jump over to GeoGebra, and I want to just go over finding the coordinate of a midpoint of a line segment. So we got a triangle here that's got vertices of 0, 4, 6, 11 and a half, and 12 and 1. So I'm just going to sketch a little triangle here. Doesn't matter what it looks like. Let's say this is A, B, C. And if I want to find the midpoint, then I'm going to connect the median, let's say from this vertex A. Well, I want to find the midpoint of this side, B, which is line segment BC. So in order to find that midpoint once again, so if I'm looking for the midpoint of segment BC, then I'm going to take the x coordinates divided by 2 of B and C and the y coordinates of B and C divided by 2, and that's going to give me the coordinate of that midpoint. So in this case, BC, and let's say this is A, this is B, this is C. I would take 6 plus 12 over 2, taking the y coordinates of B and C, comma, 11 and a half plus 1 over 2. And 6 plus 12 is 18 over 2. And 11 and a half and 1 is 12 and a half over 2. And so that coordinate of that midpoint is going to be 9, 6 and a quarter, 6.25. So that's going to be the coordinate of this midpoint, wherever that may be. And then I would do the same thing to find the coordinate for AB, which is going to be where the median from C to that point is going to be, and then also AC. I would just go repeat to do the same thing. Well, let's just do it. Let's do AB. Find the midpoint of segment AB. Well, I'm going to take 0 plus 6 over 2, and I'm going to take 4 plus 11 and a half over 2. So we got 6 over 2, comma, 15 and a half over 2. And we got the coordinate of that midpoint is going to be 3, 7.75. And that's going to be the midpoint right here of this line over here, let's say. And if we were to do that for AC, well, let's just do it. We got segment AC. We're finding the midpoint. That would be 0 plus 12 over 2. Comma, 4 plus 1 over 2. And 12 over 2 is going, 0 plus 12 is 12, and 12 over 2 is going to be 6. And 4 plus 1 is 5 divided by 2, and that's going to be 5 divided by 2 is 2.5. And so that would be this coordinate. All right. Now that would let us establish where the medians are, and then we got to find the centroid. So now let's move over to GeoGebra, and let's graph this thing and determine the coordinate of where the centroid is. All right, we're over here at GeoGebra. And so first let's graph the points that we're given. And I'm going to say that A, you might be looking up in the right-hand corner, I'm inputting it up here. A is equal to 0, 4. I'm going to hit enter. And that's going to label that A. Then I'm going to say that B is equal to, and I'm just entering the coordinates, 6, 11.5. Enter. There's B. And C, the last point, is equal to 12, 1. Boom. Okay, well, there we go. All right, now that I've got that entered, I'm going to go up here to my segment tool. I'm going to choose segment, and I'm going to complete this triangle. I'm going to click on point A to point B, and then from point B down to C, and from C to A. So I've got my triangle drawn, and now I want to find my midpoints. So I'm going to go back to my point screen, and I'm going to say midpoint. And so let's see, I'm going to choose, choose BC. I'm going to click on the line BC, and it inserts the midpoint. If you recall, we had one there for BC at 9, 6.25. And let's go down here to the line, this line H. Click on it. It puts the midpoint at 6, 2.5. And I'm going to click on line F here, and it inserts the midpoint of 3, 7.75. A little bit easier than calculating it, but you need to learn how to do both. So we calculated it on the first screen over here. I allowed my tool to calculate it for me. Now I'm going back to my segment tool, and I'm going to connect the vertices to these midpoints. I'm going to hit A, and I'm going to come over here to point D. Click there. Then I'm going from B, and I'm going to click down here on this point E. And then I'm going C, I'm putting in the medians, over to point F. And I can see that my centroid is going to be where these medians intersect. But I've got to find that point. I've got to find that coordinate. Well, it looks like it's probably about 6, 5.5. Y is, X is equal to 6, Y is equal to 5.5. But I got another little tool in here. Going back to my point tool, and this time I'm going to click intersect. And I'm going to bring it over here to where these lines intersect, and I'm going to click on it, and shazam, there's the intersection. There is my centroid at 6, 5.5. And this artist who's trying to balance this triangular figure on some type of support is going to need to place that at the point of that centroid. So here we've done it on the coordinate plane. Now if you're using graph paper, you're simply going to graph those vertices. You're going to connect them by drawing segments. You're going to manually determine where your midpoints are on the line segments to complete the medians. You'll see where they meet, and then you'll determine from there about where the coordinate of your centroid. But it's a neat little tool with GeoGebra. It's a free application, and it's got a lot of things that can make life easier when you're in geometry.